All right. Welcome to Full Sail Partners LinkedIn Live, embracing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in the project based workplace. My name is Sarah Gonnella. I am a partner at Full Sail Partners, and I oversee marketing and sales for the company. And I'm looking forward to hosting today's conversation with Tasia Grant.
Wow.
Welcome, Tasha.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And so I'm excited about today's topic on diversity, but I think our audience will probably also learn a lot. I know that as we have chatted, there's a lot to be unpacked here. And so I'm looking forward to having this conversation. And we do want it to be interactive. And so we would ask that our audience let us know that you're there. Well, I saw that we had a lot of people that are supposed to be joining us. So I'm hoping that we get a lot of people that are letting us know that they are here. So if you want to add your name into the comments and just let us know that you are here, maybe tell us where you're coming from. We would love to hear from you. And we also want to make sure that this is an interactive conversation. And so we want to start things off with a question as well. And so, one of the questions that we have that we want to start off with is when you hear the phrase DEI&B, what comes to mind for you and for your firm? And so, what do you feel like it means to you? And so, I see that we do have some people joining us. Welcome, Vanessa. She's coming in from Miami, Florida. So, continue to let us know that you're here. And so, the question is when you hear the phrase DEI&B, what comes to mind for you and your firm? So, what does it feel like it means to you? So it looks like we have some others joining us from Chicago. Welcome, Alan. Great connecting with you. It does look like it says LinkedIn user. So for people that are joining us, just know that you do have to give permission to LinkedIn to be able to show your name. So I appreciate you letting us know that it is you. And so, uh, Tasha, in the meantime, how about we do a little bit of an introduction to you while we're giving people time to answer that question?
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. My name is Tasia Grant. I am Senior HR Consultant at Full Sail Partners. I've been doing this for a long time. I have almost a couple decades of human resources experience. It is definitely my passion. It was my first career, and I've sustained this career throughout all these years. I've worked in all the areas of human resources. I worked as a generalist, as a specialist, in support roles and leadership roles. And diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are super important to me, of course, because I understand the impact and the importance of it for organizations, as well as just as a person, as an employee, and not just even as a leader of an organization, as an employee. I understand what that means to me as well. So I can't wait to get into it, Sarah.
Yeah. And so we have a question out there for our audience. So please let us know that you are here. And then if you will take time to answer that question. And so before we, really get started, I'm also curious from the audience if you had ever heard of the term DEI&B. So maybe just a simple yes or no. I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about the B. So Tasha let us know about that. And so she's going to be jumping in further. So if you can also just let us know, were you aware of the term DEI&B? And so, Tasha, do you want to give us a little bit more about what is DEI&B?
Yes, Sarah, I'm sure you're not alone. Not alone. Most people, or a lot of people, I won't even say most people, are familiar with the term DE&I. But a lot of people are not aware that it has been expanded upon, and the acronym B, the letter B has been included, and DEI&B stands for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And once I describe what each of them encompass, then you'll understand why belonging was added to make sure that it's all inclusive. So this acronym, what it's supposed to do is supposed to encompass everything aimed at creating diversity and being equitable in an organization and including people and belonging. It's about environments. This is the type of environment that a company or organization, even a society, our world should be aiming towards. They are the things that are interconnected and interdependent. And so we'll start to understand how it affects everybody in every capacity, in every organization, in every realm, in every community. So we'll talk about them one by one.
Okay, great. And so I do want to just recognize some more people that have joined us. And so our own Kate Phillips is coming in from Milwaukee. And then one of our partners, Blake, is joining us from Raleigh, North Carolina. And so far, everybody's heard of DEI in here, but haven't necessarily heard of the B. So I think that is sometimes, as you said, pretty common. And so someone else had said no to the term. And then also thank you, Lance, for coming. He said, good morning, Sarah and Tasha. So thank you all for joining. And so when we think about implementing a diversity program, it can be pretty daunting and sort of overwhelming thinking. And so maybe Tasha, you can talk a little bit about that. And also, in your experience, have you found people who think they don't have a bias? And do you think everyone potentially has a bias? And maybe we ask that first question, when we think about implementing a diversity program, is it overwhelming? Maybe that's why people have or haven't done it. So maybe, Lindsay, if you could add that question in for our audience, have you implemented it? And, is this something that's daunting? So Tasha, for you, in your experience, have you found people who think about diversity programs? Who you think that they tend to have a bias, and do you think everyone potentially has a bias?
I think so. I think one of the things is the unknown. So once I go through and kind of talk about what each of them mean, I think it'll become more apparent what it actually is. I'm going to share later about some instances about how people can be biased and not knowing that they're being biased. And a lot of times that's what scares companies away from initiating a program, because they're like, I don't know if we are or aren't. I don't think so. It looks like we're in compliance. When you ask people, do you have that program already in your company? You'll be surprised that a lot of people will answer yes, because in their minds, oh, we have a diverse staff. Our staff is just not one gender or one race. So yes, we're addressing it. But they don't realize it's not the same as actually having a program or having an initiative. And so a lot of times organizations may see themselves as, no, we don't deal with biases. And no, we don't have that problem. Our company does. That's not our brand, because they feel like, again, the staff may have some diversity, not understanding that that's not the same as a DE&I&B initiative.
Okay. Well, can you explain maybe some examples of that?
Yeah. So the first one, we're going to talk about that D. The first one is diversity. What does that mean? So diversity refers to the presence of, it's defined as the presence of a wide range of human characteristics and identities within a group, organization, or society. So we know that a lot of the familiar ones are race, ethnicity, gender, and age. But actually, there are a lot of other categories that people don't think about that we're finding present today, like gender identity and expression, age discrimination, diversity in age, ability and disability, religious and belief and political belief systems, socioeconomic status. People don't normally think about that when they think about diversity situations. I'm going to give an example of that. So let's give an example to you guys of socioeconomic. differences. And this will answer your question, Sarah, where a lot of people may feel like, no, we don't experience biases. And, I'm not sure, where that comes from. This is an example of how a company can be biased and not know that they're being biased. I've heard of examples where an organization has after work get togethers consistently.
Mhm.
It's kind of a thing, it's part of the social status. And you may have an employee who they don't attend, a lot of them. Well, they've been pegged or seen by their peers and by their management as they're antisocial, they're not team oriented. Why can't they just come out? We're just, everyone's just laid back, we're having fun, we're trying to get to know each other, we're giving an opportunity for the company to give back and create an environment that promotes the person and not just what you can do for the company. Well, a lot of times they may not understand that that is a socioeconomic bias, because we don't know that person's situation. They could be an introvert. They could have family at home that they have to rush home to, you know, every night. They could financially not be able to support that type of activity, on a regular basis. Or they may be the type of person where, I separate work,
Mhm.
professional and personal life. And it could be even something that people don't even think of. It could be a health issue or even a personal issue, like suppose they're recovering from something, and
Yeah.
they want to make sure, they stay from those environments, or their religious beliefs keep them, they decide don't want to drink because of those reasons. So they choose to keep themselves out of those environments. So we have to be careful with those type of biases that make us form opinions that ultimately may impact the decisions within the workplace. So
Mhm.
that when they are maybe being looked at for management positions or something like that, you don't want to be looked at, oh, well, they're antisocial. They don't know how to communicate with people. They're not friendly. They're not warm. They're not inviting. That may not be the case. On the job, they may absolutely be that way, but their socioeconomic status or their religious beliefs or their family situation may impact how they interact with the employees as a whole. So again, that's not an intentional bias. And a lot of people may not have even seen that as a diverse situation, but we have to understand our workforces are diverse. Everybody
Mhm.
doesn't make the same salary. Everybody's situation at home is not the same. Everyone's beliefs are not the same, and everyone doesn't
Mhm.
communicate the same. So that's an example of another example of diversity that I think people don't consider when we think of that category.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of the B as well, the belonging. And so a lot of times it's not that people aren't wanting to join the after party events or things like that. It's that we don't know their situation. So it's
Yep.
also making sure that we can make them feel that they belong maybe in other ways.
Mhm.
If that's not something that is something that they feel maybe comfortable with or able to do. So I
Yep.
think that that's a really good example of one that I don't think a lot of people really think about, and so
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about one of the things that we really focus on is a cultural fit. And so what do you think the difference is between cultural fit and being biased?
Right. So a lot of times people associate the word culture with thinking about race,
Mm,
thinking about where, geographically where you're from. No, culture is just that. It is the feeling of the organization, the values of the organization, the environment, the mood of the organization. When a person is trying to determine if they're a fit culturally, the company is just trying to communicate the philosophy of the company, the feeling, the belonging within
mhm,
that group. Belonging being actually one of the tenets of the diversity is equity and inclusion, and but belonging tenet is that we just want to make sure it's an environment that we create events, environments, our office setups, everything that makes a person feel like they can belong somewhere. We
Mhm.
can't always appease everybody in every aspect, but we want to make sure that employees can feel like they belong somewhere. So when you're in an interview and you're listening to the company, you're looking for key things that they're going to say about, hey, we're laid back. We're not, we're not an environment where you have to be dressed, suited and booted every single day. We have more of a casual business casual environment as opposed to a professional business environment where a person may feel like, well, you know what, I thrive best or I function best in this type of environment. They may feel like, well, that's not a fit for me. That's an example of a culture, not a
Mhm.
bias. But the company is like, but this is our culture. And we just want to make it clear to you that this is kind of how we operate. And these are the type of people that generally would join our organization. You're not saying we are biased. We won't hire people who don't fit that organization. But we understand that when we're looking at people we want to join our organization, and when people are looking at our company, we just want to make sure that everyone that we bring on board can feel like they have a belonging
Mhm.
somewhere, that they fit somewhere. So again, has nothing to do with your race, with your gender, with your age. It's the feeling, the
Mhm.
environment, the values, the mission, the goals of the company. That's the difference. That's the culture of the company. That is the person needs to make sure they can fit with those things. Has nothing to do with those protected groups that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah, I like that. And so whenever I think about our own culture and the things that we tell people, I really ended up developing the culture based on the feedback of the people within the company. And so we are a company that the things that we were told is that we're not the stuffy corporate feeling. We like to have fun,
Yep.
and it's just a part of our overall culture. Now we have some really high performing people within our company, um, but it's ultimately for us it's about we are selling ultimately our personalities in a lot of ways to our consultant, from our consulting base. And so you have to feel comfortable with yourself and find what your groove is in what you're doing. And so for me that's key in the belonging. Like you have to figure that out, and how it is that you will then connect with people. And ultimately that isn't that what DEI and B is about, connecting?
Yeah, and that's a good example, Sarah. In a sales role, it's super important. You don't have to be labeled as an extrovert necessarily to succeed in that role,
Yeah.
but even if your general personality is introverted, the requirement of the job is for you to be able to come out of that. It's for you to be able to, in those instances when you're dealing with clients, when you're
Mhm.
representing the organization, it is the expectation that you're able to be extroverted, to be welcoming, to be friendly, to be approachable. So, again, that is a culture or a personality trait that is needed to be successful in certain roles. Again, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, brown, blue, women, male, as long as that trait, that personality trait, you can find that so that you feel a belonging
Mhm.
in that role. And that actually leads me to one of the other definitions when we talk about equity. What do we mean by
Mhm.
equity? Well, equity is just that. It's like you said, no matter what the person's gender, race, color, sexual orientation is, we want to make sure as a company that we're fairly treating everyone equally,
Mhm.
that we're giving them the same respect, the same courtesy, that the same benefits are available across the board. Now, of course, specific benefits like health insurance benefits, they're available. It's just a matter of what your position is, may dictate what those benefits are. But generally, we want to make sure that everyone has access to the culture that you spoke of, and
Mhm.
that no one feels like they don't have access or it's not equitable as far as their treatment is concerned in a company. And we're just not talking about people, connection,
Yeah.
interaction. We're talking about space. We're talking about things like office space. We're
Yeah.
talking about, we think about pay equity. That's a buzzword right now.
Mhm.
Everybody knows about pay equity and about pay transparency. Well, when a company is actually showing that they're taking initiatives to review compensation on a regular basis to determine to make sure, okay, we want to make sure that our Black females are uh, are not getting paid more than this entire group of Asian males. We need to make sure that there's no bias in our compensation, that they're getting paid based on individual merit and individual performance. That's showing that the company is actually making efforts and initiatives to make that of importance. When we talk about policies and procedures, we want to make sure that our policies and procedures that they also reflect that things are equitable, that this group of people in this category doesn't have a different set of policies, a different set of consequences, a different set of punishments.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and I think that this is a really important point to really hone in on, and I will say that, because of your efforts that you've been helping us internally to understand in the hiring process, for example, that when you aren't asking the same types of questions or focusing on the same type of skills expectations or things like that, that you sometimes can have a bias and not even know that you had a bias because it's about connecting. And like I said, and sometimes you might connect with certain type of people and maybe not other certain type of people. And so that's then not reflecting or looking at it in an unbiased way. And that's human nature, right?
it's
So
human nature. That's such a good point. Sarah, with the hiring, you asked about the question about is it a time where you can be biased and you don't even know you're being biased?
yeah.
This is why, if you notice in the initial screenings, I say to the candidate, try to not include personal information about your beliefs and your family status and all that. And the reason why we say that is we are human beings. And we want to make sure that a person doesn't inadvertently mention that I don't know, my husband and I, we've been together for this long, and we're thinking about having a baby soon. They're just excited. They're just sharing it. Well, we want to make sure that manager in the back of their head is not thinking, do we want to hire them? Because what if she gets pregnant tomorrow? And
Mhm.
then in 9 months, she's going to have to take maternity leave. She's not going to even be eligible by then for FMLA. And then our company doesn't offer that because we're under 50 employees. All that could be racing through their head. They're not saying it out loud. They don't want to be thinking that, but
Right.
they are thinking that because we're human beings. And so a lot of times we want to make sure that we keep the field level, keep it a
Mhm.
level playing field. And so that's why, again, it may not be intentional, but it's human beings. I have another example. You don't even have to be hiring. You can be internal. You can be an existing employee and up for a management role, and a person, again, is a certain age discrimination. This is age and gender, where they may feel like,
Mhm.
oh, yeah, this is a young adult. They're around that age. I remember that time, things are looking good. They're going to want to have a family soon. Will they be available if I promote them? In a management
Mhm.
role, it's a little bit more demanding. You can't just run out at 5 o'clock. You may have to stay sometimes, after 6, or you may have to come in early because you have to do a performance review or a corrective action plan in the morning. I don't know, will they be available? They're going to be in marital bliss. And, what if their life changes? They're not going to say that out loud, but they
Mhm.
may be thinking that. And again, that person probably would say, I'm never biased against certain genders. I'm never biased against certain age groups, but they are. So it could happen even unintentionally.
It can. And when you were saying about knowing that age, for whatever reason, I started thinking about that age of being, the party, doing a lot of partying. I wasn't thinking about
Yes.
having the babies.
Yeah, exactly. But then also to your point, Sarah, think about that with the employee engagement, like with the
Mhm,
outings. It may be the assumption that I know they're single in the boss's head.
mhm.
I know they're single. They don't have who are they running home to? They don't have a wife or a husband, or they don't have kids
Yeah.
to run home to. Why can't they come out, and hang out with us? Do they have a problem? Do they not like us? Are they not, sociable? And it could be that the person just doesn't feel comfortable in large groups. It gives them anxiety, in large groups. They like the one-on-one interaction. They at work on the job, they're great. They get their job done.
Mhm.
They're easy to give direction to. No problems. But that one little thing, those little biases can impact, you know, a person. And they have no clue. They're just being themselves.
Yeah. So you've talked about the D, you've talked about the E. What about the I? What else do you have to add there?
So when people think about inclusion, inclusion refers to like our environment, our culture. We want to make it inclusive. We want our environments and our company cultures and our people to portray that they are welcoming, that they respect each other, that an employee feels valued, that they, again, want to feel like they're a part of an organization, of a group, of a team, of a community. So we want to make sure that they don't feel the weight of the differences. So let's imagine that a company, they value, they promote inclusion in so many aspects. So they have implemented accessible meeting spaces. So if you're in office company and you want to be inclusive of those who have disabilities, well, we want to make sure that we have an environment that has wheelchair accessible rooms, or they're able to access the building if they're in a wheelchair. If we have a person who needs hearing assistant, that those things are available. Visual materials. If a person has, visual needs, or any type of disabilities, or any type of even family life. When we think about offering the flexibility in working remotely as opposed to hybrid or in office, a lot of companies are adjusting those so that they can be inclusive of all people, so that single parents don't feel like they have to be excluded or they can't work somewhere simply because their schedule needs to be somewhat flexible because they can't balance that with another parent, or someone who, again, who has experienced a disability all of a sudden, but they can't quit their job. They don't want to. They love their job. So making sure that a company is like, what can we do? What type of reasonable accommodations can we make to make sure that person feels included? The other thing is engagement and participation. We want to make sure that a company doesn't send the message that you're just here to work. All we need you to do is contribute so that we can increase our revenues. No, our company, I have to say, is great about that. We do a lot of activities and we do meetings, but we don't meet just to be meeting. That's an Achilles heel of mine. I don't want to just be doing a lot of meetings to say we do a lot of meetings. No, our meetings actually serve the purpose of engaging us because we are a fully remote company. I want to say out there, everyone, those of you who are thinking about fully remote or who work in that environment, you can do it successfully. We have mastered it. We have a lot of events and meetings that allow us to engage, to talk to each other, to find out what's going on in each other's lives. Also, what's happening on your job? How you doing out there, teammate?
Yeah.
So that's being inclusive because you're allowing everyone a format or a venue or an event or something where they have a voice, where they're visually seen, you know, where their contribution to the company is voiced and seen by their peers and by their leadership. That's being inclusive.
Yeah. And it was interesting. So I've been working remote for 16 years, almost 16 years now. And so way before the COVID days. And so as people were starting to come in, we started to look at other ways that we could sort of take it to the next level where some people were just starting out. So COVID actually helped us to even ramp it up and look at other ways that we could be more connected to make sure that we were even more collaborative. And it really can be a very effective way of working. So if anybody has any questions on remote work, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be glad to share our experience with that. And so, Tasia, now we've talked about the DEI. How did the B come about? And can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah. Like I said, with belonging, when we think about it, a lot of people say, well, what's the difference between belonging and being inclusive?
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, it goes back to every employee, every person in a group, a community wants to be able to identify where I fit in this puzzle. You know, I want to feel like I belong here, that I'm needed here, that I'm a
Yeah.
contributor here. And again, no company, no community, no organization, no household can always address every single need of the person, but you can make everyone feel needed in some capacity. So it is up to the leadership of the company and the leadership of the teams and of the departments to understand and to identify where that person belongs, where they're a fit, where their contribution is, how we connect them to the organization. And so we do that by fostering that sense of camaraderie, that trust. We want to make sure there feels like a mutual support between the team members, the individuals, the community, so that person actually can say, I see where I fit here. I see where I belong here. And again, we talk about that with the hiring. With the hiring, that comes into play because the people are looking for that, the candidates, but the company is looking for that too. The company is saying to themselves, do we have a way of making this person feel like they belong here? How can we do that? If we hired this person, in what ways are we going to make sure that they feel like they're included and that they belong? Where will they fit? Where will their contribution be? Where will they thrive in this company? So that's actually on the part of the company, that's showing initiative, that you're even thinking about those things. A
Yeah,
lot of
that's
companies hire based on skill.
mm-hmm.
What's their skill set? What's their knowledge base? What's their personality? Will
Mm-hmm.
they thrive in this company? Will they be good at sales? So we make sure we're going to make a lot of money because it's going to attract a lot of clients. And that is what motivates their hires, as opposed to what about internal,
Mm-hmm.
exclusive of clients, exclusive of revenues? What about internally? Will they feel good being here? Because that breeds loyalty. That's longevity. That's tenure. You want employees to come and want to stay because they feel like, wow, I see people who look like me. And I see people who look like me in all levels, in all roles.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, that's one of the things that if two of the biggest takeaways I'd like from here is that it's really about actual action. If you
Mm-hmm.
notice, the common thing is not just knowing or just being aware, but you're actually implementing it in the system. You're taking initiative, you're doing efforts, and that your employees are aware of that. And that
Yeah.
candidates outside in your branding and your marketing, they see that you're taking steps in that direction and just being consistent, interweaving that into a culture where the expectation is that from everybody in the company, not just leadership.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was talking with my husband about this conversation and what we were going to talk about today. And one of the things that I noticed, even within his own company, is that he has a lot more females that they've been hiring.
Mm,
And the type of work that he does, they in the past did not feel that females could handle the work. And I asked
mm,
him, I said, so now looking at the people that are in the room that are represented, what percentage of them are females? He goes, almost 50% now. And I said, wow. I
Wow.
said, how, when did that start changing? And he said about 5 years ago. And it was the old guard basically leaving, and it was new guard coming in, looking at things and saying, hey, there's a bias here. And, why are we assuming that, women can't pick up 50,
That's right.
50 pounds or higher? Why don't we just say, here's the requirement and see where it goes?
That's
And
right.
then they started getting more and more females that actually joined their force. And so I think that's really it, is that a lot of times we think, oh, well, because of X, they can't do XYZ. And that's really when we start to see that we are being biased, because we think, I know someone that fits this bill, and I know they couldn't do it, so therefore this other person couldn't do it.
That's interesting, Sarah. As you know, actually, two of my clients experienced that with the gender gap issue,
Mm-hmm.
where in the AEC industry, it is something that's common in our
Yeah.
industry, where you have, we know, the old school, engineers, architects, and construction executives. They come from the old school,
Mm-hmm.
when before pre-COVID, when everybody was in the office, everything was hands-on. You actually touched plans. You actually touched drawings.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is that the up and coming generation, they're used to the ways that we experienced during the pandemic, and they like it and they want to stay that way.
I
The
know.
other thing that's hard to, I think, for us to accept is, guess what? A lot of our generation and a lot of the older generation, they actually got used to it. And
Mm-hmm.
they're like, you know what? This wasn't so bad. I didn't realize. I thought that I didn't like this, but I like this. So you have this generation that is stuck there, that sees even people are in the mid generation, like they're surprised. Wait a minute, I wasn't expecting that from you. So it
Mm-hmm.
throws them off and they don't know how to react. And then you have the younger generation that they're looking at the older generations as, you know what, they're stuck, they're judging us, they're having bias, they're
Mm-hmm.
thinking they don't want to go to a company that doesn't have all young people, because they make the assumption
Mm-hmm.
that they're going to be
Right.
discriminated against because of their beliefs, because of their standards, that there's going to be no flexibility, that they won't even give those companies a chance.
Yeah.
Instead, like I advise those companies, there needs to be a happy medium. There has to be, because what they don't realize is this up and coming generation, you have so much to learn. There's so much wonderful knowledge transfer that can
Mm-hmm.
take place. These people are thought leaders in this industry. And so you actually you want to come in up under them so they can transfer that knowledge to you so you can take up the ranks, once they've left the company. And then the same thing with the generation who's kind of stuck in their ways. They understand, you know what? We may need to be flexible because these are our people, our successors. They're coming after us. And if we know that we have some great knowledge here to share in this industry, they're going to be contributors to this industry at some point. So, guess what? It actually makes sense for you to have some flexibility because you want to bring them in. You want to invite them in. You don't want them just looking for companies with people that look just like them. Because,
Mm-hmm.
again, we want diversity.
Yeah. So talk about, why does DEI&B matter? Specifically for project-based firms or professional services firms, which is the types of clients that we service.
Yeah. Well, as I've stated before, with the belonging and being inclusive, it fosters positive and continuous employee engagement.
Hmm.
People, are interacting with each other because they don't feel intimidated or feel like everyone's so different that we can't engage. And so it keeps the culture an engaging culture. And then also it's essential to driving innovation. If you have different mindsets and everybody's able to contribute different things at different levels with different knowledge bases, with different backgrounds, then wow, imagine how the creative juices are flowing for sales, for marketing, for coming up with new products, for coming up with new services. Imagine when you're getting them from people who have all different types of professional backgrounds and personal backgrounds. And also, it broadens the talent pool. If we broaden our diversity initiative in hiring, then guess what? It allows us to look at a wider group of candidates. That's a win for us. We're
Mm-hmm.
opening up the door to what's out there. Think about the example you gave of your husband. They had tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm.
So their talent pool was like this
Yep.
before, because they were only looking for a certain type. Look at where their talent pool expanded once they
Exactly.
opened their minds, once they changed their mindsets to a more diverse, more inclusive culture. Wow. They realize we have been missing out on all these fantastic contributors, which I'm sure has impacted the growth of the company. I'm going to give you some statistics, Sarah, that
Yeah.
people don't realize it affects the bottom line. There was a survey in Glassdoor that found that 67% of job seekers consider diversity an important factor when evaluating job offers. So they're looking us up. They're looking us up to look to see what our diversity looks like first, but then
Mm-hmm.
also, are there initiatives? What are they doing? Okay, they may not have made it there yet, but what are they doing? To at his company, I'm certain that there are candidates who look at the changes that they've made and it's positive. That's
Mm-hmm.
attractive. That's a great reflection. They're doing the work. They're not just saying it. When
Yeah.
we talk about bottom lines, a study by Forbes found that diverse companies are 1.7 times more likely to be innovative leaders in their market. So it's impacting our branding. It's impacting our impact.
I
And
think that that's huge. Innovation, when you have different minds that think differently, you will get different ways that you didn't even think about things. And that's where a lot of times that innovation comes from and the creativity comes from, because you're thinking about it this way and someone else thinks about it this way. And then when you finally get together and have that conversation, you're like, oh, I really needed to look at all of this.
yeah, and even money. Okay, let's keep it real. Companies, how does that impact the bottom line? We want to know that too. Well, there was a report by the Center for Talent Innovation that found that companies with more diverse workforces have a 2.3 times higher cash flow per employee over a 3-year period compared to their less diverse peers.
Mhm.
Bottom line, money. It even impacts companies' money, their revenues, their growth, their development. It
Yeah.
impacts it directly.
So I'd like to know from our audience, do you have a diversity program at your firm? And so, Tasha, while we're waiting for people to answer that, what are some of the ways to begin implementing DEI&B at your firm?
Well, a great example, one of our clients, I did what we call a human resources navigational analysis. So I go in and I look at just every aspect of human resources. And then where there's areas of opportunity, we look at what they're doing great, and then some areas of opportunity of improvements or changes in their processes. And one of the things that I would identify is they said, we want diversity. We want to implement that, but we don't know where to start. We don't know how
Mhm.
to do it. Well, one of the ways is in your hiring. What do your posts look like? Where are you advertising your diversity in hiring? Are you going to schools outside of your geographical location? If in your geographical location is the population as high as white males or white families, and you're wondering how come I can't, you know, attract other races, other genders? Well, because you're keeping your atmosphere right here. This is where your hiring is taking place. So are you going
Mhm.
to schools and are you targeting those organizations of Indian Americans in engineering? I spoke this weekend at NSBE, which is the National Society of Black Engineers. Hey, it would be great for the company to say, we need to find out if we can post our jobs there, because we just need young engineers all over. That's showing an initiative
Hmm.
to increase diversity, and not just saying, no, we want diverse, but we don't know what to do. Training and education. If you don't have a DEI&B, it's always hard to add that B,
Hmm.
DEI&B program, then you should at the very least have someone designated or dedicated to that. One of my clients, the HR person actually wasn't even the person over that program. They actually had people from different departments to spearhead that program because they wanted to be inclusive. They wanted to make sure that it was everyone's effort, not just HR's effort, not just leadership's effort,
Hmm.
that they had someone volunteer to oversee that program. What a great idea to not dump that all on leadership, to not dump that all on HR. And I say those words dump and not mean that it's a burden or it's a hassle, but it's another responsibility, because if you're taking it seriously, it is another responsibility, another task, another program. A couple other things, they're called employee resource groups. When you think about women in leadership at an organization, or the LGBTQX organization. Plus, we can have organizations that focus on that. Flexible work policies, leadership development programs. So we need to make sure that we're actually training our leaders to have this mindset. We need
Right.
to train them and teach them how to incorporate this in their hiring, in their performance review processes, even in their managing of their people. We need to train them. Everyone doesn't know how to do it inherently.
Hmm.
Employee engagement activities, promotion of diversity in content and in marketing and branding. These are just some of the ways.
Yeah. So what is maybe your favorite way of people getting started in exploring DEI&B of those?
I would say, well, the most fun way, of course, is employee engagement activities.
Mhm.
Having events where people are bringing different food types, or, we're celebrating different cultures. We're acknowledging,
Mhm.
special days and holidays. So that's probably one of my most fun initiatives, but the most impacting one is the diverse hiring practices. Um, you have to actually hire the people. You have to see the change within your organization. You actually have to be able to see it, because the truth is, when candidates are going to sites, you're scrolling through, looking at who's employed there. You're scrolling through, looking at the videos of the employee events. You're looking to see how they're interacting.
Mhm.
What's happening there? What's the culture? Who attends most of the events? Are the leaders even there? Do I always see just employees, but I never see the CEO and the president there?
Mm.
So it shows a separation between leadership and support positions. So again, that's in the hiring process. That's in the recruiting process, the branding process. So I feel like it starts there. You have to make a concerted effort to make your team and your employee base diverse in all capacities, in all categories.
Yeah. And I think that that's why one of the reasons when we first started, we wanted people to see us not just as this professional that does the work. We have other photos that show the personal side
It does.
of people. And so when we think about DEI&B, for me, the big thing to think about is that we're human. Like it is about us connecting on a human level, and how we all need to collaborate or connect or all of those types of things. But we also have to understand that when we grew up, there might be things we were exposed to, not exposed to, biases we ended up gaining along the way that we may not even realize. And so
Yes.
that's why I think for this type of program, or thinking about this internally, becomes really important. It's just understanding more about yourself and how it is that you can also grow as an individual, and grow especially as a leader
That's right.
within the company.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you joining us today and helping us better understand DEI&B. And I want to echo what Vanessa said. She said, great conversation.
Thank
Thank you so
you
much.
for joining us.
And someone else had said they needed to drop, but thank you so much for hosting this insightful talk on DEI&B. And so, Tasha, if people want to connect with you and maybe see how you can help them with DEI&B, how can they reach you?
Head over to our website, fullsailpartners.com, and you will look up under our resources. You can click on Human Resources Consulting, but then also you can shoot me an email at tgrant@fullsailpartners.com, and we can start talking. And again, if you don't even know if you all need this initiative, give me a call because I can talk it through with you. We can do an assessment and we can talk about ways that either we can ramp it up if you already have that initiative started, or we can formalize it, streamline it, or we can just start the process. And it doesn't matter how big your company is. I want to say that again. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be a big company or large company to start this initiative. You actually want to start it early.
Perfect. I love it. And so Lindsay has added it for Full Sail Partners on this. It says learn more about our HR consulting, including DEI&B services. And so you can go to fullsailpartners.com and then you would go to our services and then to HR consulting. And
Yeah.
so, Tasha, thank you so much again for helping to educate us on DEI&B. And I hope that people out there will take this initiative serious within their corporations and see the things that they can do to be able to make sure that we're being inclusive and helping people to belong.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.